Do you ever feel like your English is actually pretty good, but your TOEFL speaking score is just stuck? You're stuck at a 20 or 22, and you cannot break into that 25 plus zone? This is one of the most common problems TOEFL students face. And honestly, it's usually not because of grammar, it's because the new TOEFL speaking section has this one terrifying feature: zero preparation time. They throw a question at you and you have to speak immediately. Most people panic, they freeze. They say for 5 seconds and that destroys their score. In this video, we're gonna fix that. We're gonna go through a full practice test together, specifically the new listen and repeat and interview tasks. I'll show you exactly what a top scoring response looks like, so you can see for yourself what to do and what to avoid. Welcome to TOEFL Test with Linguamarina. If you're ready to finally get that 30 out of 30, don't forget to subscribe and click the bell icon so you don't miss the upcoming videos. Let's get started. Let's start with the first task, listen and repeat. Now, a lot of students think, oh, this is easy, I just repeat the words. But here's the trap. As the task goes on, the sentences get longer. And if you just try to memorize the words like a robot, you're gonna mess up the rhythm or forget the words entirely. What the graders actually want to hear is natural intonation. They want to hear the music of the language. And once you understand this concept, it completely changes your delivery score. Let's try a real example from the new test format. You can find the link to the ETS practice materials below so you can practice on your own afterwards. Imagine you're learning to work at a zoo. You're going to hear your manager give you instructions. I'll play the clip. You try to repeat it, then I'll show you how to say it for a perfect score.
Please no outside food or drinks and do not feed the animals.
How did that feel? So here's what typically happens with lower scoring students. They try to say every word at the exact same speed. Please no outside food or drinks and do not feed the animals. It sounds flat and unnatural, but a top scoring student uses what we call chunking. You group the words together, just like a native speaker would. Please no outside food or drinks and do not feed the animals. See that? I paused slightly after please. I stressed outside food. That is what makes it intelligible. And remember, clear articulation and natural pronunciation are essential. Without them, even with perfect grammar, your score will be limited. This applies to every question on the speaking section. Let's try a harder one. This is the kind of long sentence that appears toward the end of the task, and this is where a lot of people panic and lose points.
The visitor center, located near the front entrance, can give you more information.
That was long, right? If you panicked, you probably missed the end. Here's the trick. Focus on the key nouns: center, entrance, information. Anchor your repetition to those words, and the rest fills in naturally. The visitor's center, located near the front entrance, can give you more information. If you speak with that kind of rhythm, you're going to be fine. And this is a skill you can practice at home. Record yourself, listen back, and compare your rhythm to native speakers. It makes a huge difference. Before we jump into the interview task, I want to mention something real quick. If you feel like you've been putting in effort, but your speaking score is still stuck below 22 or 23, it might not be about your English level. It's about knowing how to answer each question in a way that meets the specific requirements the test makers are looking for. That's exactly what we focus on in the LinguaTOEFL TOEFL course. In our new prep course for the 2026 version of the test, we've got templates for each question type, so you're never stuck wondering how to start. When you have a structure in your head, it's so much easier to speak fluently and come up with ideas on the spot. And if your mind goes blank during the exam, you can just fall back on a familiar opening sentence and build your answer from there. If you're interested, the link is below. Okay, are you ready? Let's tackle the interview. So, the interview task. You have no prep time. The interviewer asks a question and you have 45 seconds to answer. This is where a lot of people start to panic, but please don't. Relax. Remember, you're here to show your speaking skills, not to give a perfect philosophical answer. For this practice, we're participating in a study about exercise habits. The secret here is to be personal. Don't try to be a philosopher. Just tell the truth about your life. It's so much easier. And you won't believe it, but very often, when a student relaxes and stops stressing about giving the perfect answer, their score immediately jumps 2 or 3 points higher. It happens all the time. Here comes question 1.
Thank you for taking part in this study. Today I'd like to ask you some questions about your exercise habits. First, can you describe the type of exercise you or someone you know typically does regularly, such as running, yoga, or weightlifting? Why?
Okay, time is up. The interviewer asked what type and why. 2 parts. You can't sit there gathering your thoughts. You need to start talking immediately. And here's a little tip. It's completely fine to use natural filler words like honestly or, to keep the flow going while your brain catches up. The graders understand you're nervous. They just want to see that you can communicate. Here's what a top scoring response sounds like. Notice how it sounds like a real person, not a textbook. Honestly, I'm not a big athlete, but I usually practice yoga about 3 times a week. It's quite helpful because it allows me to unwind after a long day of classes. When you sit at a desk all day, your shoulders get really tight. So doing those stretches releases all that tension. For me, yoga isn't even really about building muscle. It's more like a mental reset that helps me focus better the next day. Let's keep going. Question 2 is usually about a preference. In this case, it's about exercising alone versus with others. This is very similar to the independent speaking question that we used to have, where you're asked to pick a side and explain why.
I see. Some exercise programs are done alone, and some are designed to be done with others. Would you prefer to exercise alone, or would you prefer to exercise with others? Why?
How was it? I want to give you one tip that makes a big difference for anyone aiming for a 26 or higher. Don't just give your opinion. Acknowledge the other side first. It makes your grammar sound more sophisticated because you end up using complex sentences, and that's always a plus on the TOEFL speaking section. Personally, I would prefer to exercise alone. I mean, while I understand that working out in a group can motivate some people because it pushes them to work harder, I just find it kind of distracting. When I go for a run by myself, for example, I can set my own pace. I can listen to my own podcasts without worrying about keeping up with anyone else. It just gives me a sense of freedom. That's something I really value during a busy week. See what I did there? While I understand that working out in a group can motivate some people, that little phrase, while I understand that, is gold. It shows that you can use complex sentences. And then I pivoted back to my opinion with a concrete personal example. This is exactly the kind of structure the TOEFL graders love. This acknowledge then pivot strategy is really effective. If you want more templates like this, the link is in the description. Let's move on to question 3, and it shifts away from you and asks about people in general. This is where a lot of students mess up because they keep talking about themselves. You need to broaden it out. Stop saying, I do this and I feel that. Instead, talk about what people experience or what happens in general. It's a small shift, but the graders notice it immediately.
Interesting. Some people believe that exercising outdoors is both more beneficial and more enjoyable than exercising indoors. Do you agree or disagree, and why?
Okay, so outdoor versus indoor. Do you agree? To get a 30, you want to elaborate, give a reason, and then explain the consequence of that reason. Don't just say, I agree because fresh air is nice. You need to push deeper. Tell the grader why fresh air matters. What does it actually do for you? That extra layer of explanation is what separates a good answer from a great one. Yeah, I totally agree that exercising outdoors is better. I think the main reason is the fresh air and scenery. It makes working out feel less like a chore and more like an adventure. For example, when you run on a treadmill, you just stare at a wall. It's boring. But if you run in a park, you see nature and breathe clean air, which boosts your mood psychologically. You actually want to exercise longer because you're enjoying it. Did you notice the structure? I gave my opinion, then a reason, and then a concrete comparison. Treadmill versus park. That comparison is powerful because it paints a picture in the listener's mind. And I also use the phrase, to be more specific. That is a great transition phrase. It tells the listener, hey, I'm about to give you a detail. It keeps your answer organized, even when you're speaking fast. Little connectors like that are free points on the TOEFL. So the last question number 4. This is usually about a trend or a technology. And I know what you're thinking. What if I don't know anything about fitness apps? Relax. You don't need to be an expert. You just need to have an opinion and support it.
Good points. Lastly, I would like to ask about using fitness apps. Some people like to use fitness apps on smartphones to organize their fitness schedules. Do you agree this is a good way to keep track of your exercising goals? Why or why not?
What if you have nothing to say? What if your mind goes blank? This happens to everyone. Use a filler phrase that actually means something. Don't just say, say something like, that's an interesting question. It buys you 3 seconds to think. And the best part? It sounds natural, like something you'd say in a real conversation. The graders won't penalize you for it. They'll actually appreciate that you're keeping the conversation flowing. That is a really interesting question. In general, I think fitness apps are great tools. First of all, they provide objective data. For example, an app can show you a graph of your running speed increasing over the course of a month. Seeing that visual proof is incredibly motivating. They also help people maintain a consistent routine, which they might not do if they were just writing it down on a piece of paper. See how I started with, that is a really interesting question? That bought me a couple of seconds. Then I went straight into my opinion with, first of all, which is a clear signal to the grader that I'm organizing my thoughts. I gave a specific example, the graph of running speed, and then I added a second point about consistency. 2 reasons, 1 example. That's more than enough for a top score. So you made it through. The biggest takeaway here is don't try to be perfect. Did you hear my answers? I used contractions. I said like and you know. I sounded like a human being. The TOEFL raters aren't looking for a robot. They are looking for someone who can communicate clearly and keep the conversation going. If you want to practice this more, try recording yourself on your phone answering these same questions. Listen back. Do you sound natural? Or do you sound like you're reading a script? That simple test will tell you everything you need to know about where you stand.